So it's just a pretty.
Ladies and gentlemen, behind the dazzling flashes of Hollywood and the nostalgic whispers of the early 2000s lies a story that still stuns the world. Dear audience, tonight I will take you on a journey through the raw confessions of a woman who, at just 39, finally dares to name the 5 people she hates the most. Lindsay Lohan, once the freckled sweetheart of Disney's The Parent Trap, the rebellious teen queen of Mean Girls, the paparazzi's golden scandal, now stands at a crossroads where her truth can no longer be hidden behind glossy magazine covers or blurred tabloid headlines. Imagine living a life where your enemies are not lurking in the shadows, but standing right next to you at a red carpet event, fighting over a stolen boyfriend, royalties, or your very sanity. She says, "They took pieces of me, and I'm done pretending I'm okay with it." Who could she possibly despise enough to speak it out loud? A former best friend turned viper, a teen rival who stole more than just the spotlight, a father who exposed her darkest moments, a mentor whose scripts became battlegrounds, and the swarm of paparazzi who made her a prisoner of fame. Dear audience, are you ready to see who Lindsay Lohan really loathes behind that fragile smile? Do you want me to continue? Dear audience, before we peel back the layers of Lindsay Lohan's confessions, let us pause and remember who this woman once was, and, in some ways, still is. Born in 1986 in the bustling heart of New York, Lindsay Lohan entered the limelight before she could even read her own contracts. At just 3 years old, she was already a Ford model, her freckled face and magnetic charm gracing countless print ads, a sign of the star she would become. But it was 1998's The Parent Trap that made the world fall in love with the mischievous girl who played twins so effortlessly that audiences were certain they were seeing double. It was the beginning of an era that crowned her Hollywood's next sweetheart. By her teenage years, Lindsay had become a bankable name, carrying blockbuster hits like Freaky Friday and the cult classic Mean Girls on her slender shoulders. She was every young girl's style icon, every boy's crush, and every magazine's dream cover. The world devoured her every move, the girl who could command the screen with her fiery hair and sharp wit. Behind the camera, the money rolled in. She was one of the highest-paid young actresses of the 2000s, proof that a child star could, at least for a while, ride the wave of success straight into adulthood. But, dear audience, the fairy tale was always laced with shadows. Raised by parents who never truly left the showbiz stage themselves, Lindsay's private life became a family drama that played out for millions to see. Her father, Michael Lohan, notorious for speaking to the press about her struggles, seemed more like an opportunistic commentator than a supportive parent. Her mother, Dina, a stage mom to the core, fought her own battles while trying, and failing, to keep Lindsay's demons at bay. Rehab stints, DUI charges, and courtroom appearances became chapters in a tragic script she could never seem to rewrite. Yet through all the storms, the public meltdowns, the rumors of theft, the notorious party nights with Paris Hilton, the petty feuds with fellow starlets like Hilary Duff, Lindsay Lohan kept coming back. She was the phoenix who refused to die in the ashes of her own scandals. Even when she moved abroad to find peace, even when she married Badr Shamas in 2022, the ghosts of her past continued to whisper. She made comebacks in the unlikeliest of places. A nightclub in Greece, a reality show, a Netflix rom-com that made people remember the girl they once adored. And now, at 39, she is no longer that reckless tabloid headline, but a woman brave enough to confess who broke her trust the most. The 5 names she reveals are not just people she hates. They are reminders of how fame can twist friendships into betrayal, turn family into enemies, and make the press your lifelong tormentor. Dear audience, with this glimpse into Lindsay's tangled journey, are you ready to dive deeper into the betrayals that still haunt her? Dear audience, now comes the part of Lindsay Lohan's story that so many thought they knew, yet never fully understood. It was never just about the parties or the mugshots. It was about the people who circled her like sharks, drawn to the scent of her youthful fame, only to leave bite marks that never quite healed. At the heart of these wounds is Paris Hilton, once her wild partner in crime, the so-called best friend who knew all her secrets, and then, just as quickly, hurled those secrets back at her under the blinding flashes of paparazzi cameras. Who could forget those nights when the two were inseparable, slipping out of limousines into Hollywood's most exclusive clubs, only to be torn apart by public insults and a rivalry that delighted the tabloids for years? Then there was Hilary Duff, the sweet-faced teen actress who seemed like Lindsay's mirror image until one boy, Aaron Carter, cracked that reflection wide open. The gossip columns thrived on tales of their bitter feud over his affections, but it was never just about a teenage fling. It was about trust, betrayal, and how easily a friendship could be poisoned by jealousy when the world was watching. Lindsay once whispered to a close friend, "We were never fighting for love. We were fighting for a crown they made us wear." And, dear audience, what of the betrayal that cut far deeper than any celebrity spat? Lindsay's father, Michael Lohan, was supposed to be her protector. Instead, he became her greatest liability, giving interviews about her addictions, selling stories about her stints in rehab, airing family secrets to strangers for a paycheck. She once said, "My father talks about me like I'm his product, not his child." Their public fights played out on every tabloid cover, and every time she stumbled, there he was, ready to speak. Never to her, always to the world. Not all betrayals came from family or fleeting romances. One of the most surprising names on Lindsay's list of nemesis is Tina Fey, the sharp-witted creator of Mean Girls. What was once a creative partnership turned sour when Lindsay felt she was being cheated out of royalties. She believed that the movie that defined her teen stardom became another battleground, another reason to mistrust the very people who once lifted her up. It was a silent feud, polite smiles hiding cold shoulders backstage, but Lindsay's resentment lingered, growing into a quiet storm that no one suspected, and looming over all these betrayals like a relentless swarm, the paparazzi. Lindsay Lohan was never alone, even when she desperately wanted to be. They camped outside her house, chased her down highways, caught her at her lowest, and sold it to the world. She sued them, fought them, cursed them, but in the end, they were as much a part of her identity as her film roles. She says now, "They made me famous, and they made me a prisoner." Dear audience, with these 5 names, Lindsay Lohan is finally free to speak her truth. The secrets, the heartbreaks, the grudges that shaped her rise and fall. As Lindsay Lohan's confessions unfolded, the world was forced to look beyond the scandalous headlines and see the bruises left behind by fame's sharpest claws. The war with Paris Hilton was more than a petty party feud. It was a spectacle that fed on 2 young women trapped in the same cage. In 2006, after a messy night that made front-page news, Paris called Lindsay a firecrotch in front of cameras. A cruel insult that would echo through gossip blogs for years. Lindsay, cornered by questions and flashbulbs, lashed back, calling Paris mean and fake. What the cameras didn't catch were the frantic phone calls, the passive-aggressive apologies, and the moments when Lindsay still hoped they could be friends again, until she realized that Paris thrived on keeping her enemies close enough to humiliate. Hilary Duff, too, played her part in Lindsay's chaos. The Aaron Carter triangle was teenage drama elevated to tabloid war. When Lindsay tried to extend an olive branch at a Hollywood party, Hilary brushed her off, dismissing her as just another Disney girl looking for drama. It stung more than Lindsay ever admitted, fueling late-night rants and heartbreak songs scribbled in half-empty diaries. Years later, when asked if they'd ever reconcile, Lindsay only smirked and said, "Some scars don't fade, especially the ones you gave each other in your teens." But the deepest wounds were carved by blood. Michael Lohan, her father, never stopped dragging her name through every radio station and tabloid TV show that would listen. In a tearful interview, Lindsay once confessed, "Every time I got better, he found a way to pull me back down. He sold my secrets, my pain, like they were his own trophies." The endless court cases, the restraining orders, the half-hearted reunions, they turned her childhood into a battlefield. And yet, there were years of silence, Years when Lindsay simply stopped answering his calls, hoping that shutting him out would shut out the pain. Tina Fey, the woman who gave her Mean Girls her crown jewel, turned into another cautionary tale. When Lindsay demanded fair royalties, Fey's legal team pushed back hard. Tensions rose behind closed doors, polite Hollywood smiles concealing harsh words about contracts and greed. To the public, it looked like a young actress out of control, biting the hand that fed her. But Lindsay kept her resentment bottled up, telling only her closest friends that the woman who wrote, "On Wednesdays, we wear pink," owed her more than pink dollars. It became another brick in the wall of her trust issues. And then there were the relentless paparazzi, the faceless crowd with cameras for eyes. Lindsay once fought back, throwing her coat over a photographer's lens outside a nightclub. He sued. She lost. They chased her through Beverly Hills at 2 in the morning, causing fender benders that fueled new scandal reels. For every movie premiere, there were 3 DUI snapshots to match. For every comeback, there was another meltdown immortalized in grainy, flashing light. Years of silence turned to simmering anger, then to reluctant acceptance, and finally, at 39, to confession. Lindsay Lohan's list is not just a list. It's her history, her rage, her twisted love story with the spotlight that gave her everything and took it all away. When Lindsay Lohan finally whispered these 5 names aloud, it was not to fuel another tabloid headline, but to free herself from the chains they wrapped around her life for decades. For so long, the world knew her as the scandal, the mess, the train wreck they loved to mock. But when the cameras stopped flashing, she was just a woman longing for peace. And peace, she learned, sometimes comes from releasing the grudges that once defined you. Her reconciliation with Paris Hilton was the first unexpected step. After years of icy insults and mocking memes, they found themselves at the same charity gala in Dubai. 2 women no longer hungry for the thrill of being photographed drunk at 3 in the morning. Paris, newly a mother, walked up to Lindsay and said, "We were just kids." Lindsay, teary-eyed, replied, "We were monsters to each other." They hugged, laughing awkwardly at how 2 wild girls from Hollywood could find forgiveness under the desert stars. Hilary Duff, too, became a strange symbol of how time can soften even the pettiest wounds. They bumped into each other at a Netflix event. Both mothers now, both older, both carrying years of unspoken resentment in the lines beneath their eyes. Lindsay confessed later, "We didn't talk about Aaron Carter. We didn't have to. We just talked about life, our kids, and the stupid things we once said to hurt each other." In that moment, the teenage feud that launched 1,000 headlines felt like a ghost too tired to haunt. But forgiveness has its limits. Michael Lohan remains the name that brings the hardest silence. Lindsay has said she may never fully reconcile with her father, the betrayal too raw, the public wounds too deep. Yet she admits she no longer carries rage. "I pity him," she says. "That's all I can give him now." Tina Fey surprised everyone when she reached out on Lindsay's birthday with a handwritten note. "Mean Girls was yours too. Let's leave it at that." It wasn't an apology, but it was a gesture. Enough for Lindsay to let the old resentment dissolve, if only for her own healing. And what of the paparazzi? They will never ask for forgiveness, and Lindsay will never give it. But she has found her way to live above them, choosing quiet beaches in Dubai, private moments in Greece, a life where she controls the lens, not the other way around. After all, she says softly, family, forgiveness, and peace. That's what matters in the end. Lindsay Lohan's story is not just about betrayal and scandal. It is about the bruises that fame can leave on a fragile soul and the unexpected strength that grows in their place. At 39, she stands before the world, no longer the reckless girl stumbling out of nightclubs, but a woman who has named her demons and, in some small way, laid them to rest. But what does forgiveness truly mean when the scars remain? Is it possible to let go of those who once fed on your chaos and still carry pieces of you wherever they go? She asks herself this every day, wondering if the peace she has found will last longer than the storms that once defined her. Dear audience, I ask you, if you were Lindsay Lohan, would you find it in your heart to forgive the father who sold your secrets, the friends who betrayed you under neon lights, The cameras that turned your heartbreak into entertainment, fame, power, money. They glitter so brightly until you see the cracks they leave behind the spotlight. In the end, perhaps what matters most is not who you hate, but who you choose to become when you finally set that hate down. A story behind the velvet ropes, leaving questions only your own heart can answer.